Welcome to Soltron. This is a video review for the LDCX AWACS plane and the Bomber. And here's a size comparison. You can see they're both pretty large. Alright, and I decided to do these two guys together because they have a lot of similarities, but they're actually very, very different robots. So let's start with the Bomber. He's got a really cool head sculpt. It's got a lot of detail on it. Of course, it's just a pilot helmet with some goggles on it, but that's a great looking head sculpt. So his head looks really good. As for his body, I think it leaves a lot to be desired. He's pretty skinny looking. I really like what they did with the wings though. This effect is pretty cool. But yeah, he's very skinny and straight looking. And then you can see his wings stick out way far behind him. I'm surprised he's not falling over. It's just thankfully he's got really good heels. But you can see he's got a huge backpack behind him. It would definitely be nice if this would have collapsed better. And then not much going on in the back. It's not very interesting to look at. It's pretty cool how they did the cockpits on the arms like this. But yeah, pretty cool looking guy. Reminds me a little bit of Lugnut with his kind of warthog looking bomber mode. But yeah, I really like this clear blue plastic, and he's got a couple little accents, like on his fists he's got these little arm cannons, so that's his weapon pretty much. And then he's got his blue knee pads here. But yeah, and then his articulation, he does not have head articulation. This is actually all hollow, so underneath this little neck joint it's pretty much just a hole down there, so it would be really hard to get head articulation from this guy with the spring-loaded gimmick they put in. And then he does have rotating shoulders on a pretty strong ratchet, and he does have full outward motion. He does have bicep swivel as well, but it's in kind of a weird place. It's at underneath his elbow. And then he does have double jointed elbow for transformation, so that's got great articulation. And then no wrist articulation except for the transformation. One problem his shoulder does have is these two rods are supposed to clip together, but they come unclipped very easily. And then the other problem is his whole torso is not pegged into place, so if you're moving the shoulder, you got to hold down his chest so that his chest doesn't just dislodge. He does have a full outward kick, like most of these guys. He does not have any forward or backward kick on this hip. He does have a full 90 on the knee. And then he does not have any real ankle pivot. That might be some, but I think that's just incidental. I don't think that's on purpose. So as with the rest of these guys, the lack of neck articulation and the inability to kick the legs forward or backwards really hurts the articulation. And this guy already doesn't have any weapons, so he's not going to really get any cool poses going. He can kind of, I guess, like shoot these forward, but he's not going to really be able to do anything cool since he can't even look left or right. And then this guy, unlike the other robots I showed you lately, this guy does not have any die cast, so he's like a normal plastic weight. And then you can go ahead and start transforming him so we can flatten out those wings. And you can see that's pretty much the whole wing assembly there. And then you're going to unclip this, which is only held into place by this little friction tab. So that's really not enough to hold his chest into place. And then you're going to collapse that into his waist section. And then you go ahead and close up his legs. Oh, I guess I forgot to give him a robot rating. For this guy, I think he's pretty generic looking. I'm not super into him. I'd say he's kind of a 5. He's just really not that cool. Plastic quality, of course, is still great quality. And I'd say that's still like a 9. Feels pretty good in hand. And then you rotate, or you just slide those down. And then he has a second leg joint so that you can get these legs closer together, and they're just going to sandwich together. And then you point the knees out, or the toes, and then you're going to slide those up. There's a little clicking joint. And then you're going to take the whole tail section and just fold that forward, close that up, and then fold out the tail section right there. The tail wings, I don't know what those are called. And then now that we gotta get the head back in place, and then you can fold in. That's weird. Oh, it's because I didn't open up the shoulders. So the shoulders take up the chest cavity, so you have to pull these totally out, and that gives the head space to store. And then you can rotate in this section, maybe. I don't know what his problem is. Every time I rotate this in, his head's popping out. Let me see what's going on. All right, I forgot he's got this spring-loaded back panel. You've got to collapse this as you rotate that into place. So he's got a couple spring-loaded gimmicks for his head. And now everything's nicely in place. And of course, you're gonna open up the knee pads a little bit and then collapse the legs into place. So you have pretty much the whole body of the jet right there. And then to get the cockpit section in place is pretty difficult. You're gonna first get rid of these fists and then fold this up. And that's also spring loaded. When you close this, they just pop out. So now you have one half of the cockpit. And then if I remember right, you have to get this landing gear out of the way because that's going to be a problem in a minute. And then you got to use these weird joints here to kind of get the shoulders in place. So you want the shoulder to end up folded here. And this wouldn't be such a problem if these didn't rotate this way too. It wouldn't be so confusing. Like there's really no reason for them to do this. It's pretty unnecessary. You're going to get that in place, and then you're going to basically work this double jointed elbow so that this cockpit will fold in place here. It's really irritating. You have to line it up just perfectly. It's really not fun. This is where I'm definitely going to take off score for the fun factor of transforming this guy. It's really a hassle. And then you have to get this double joint, which is ratcheted on both sides. You got to just get that perfectly right. It's really difficult to do. There we go. So now it's at a 45-degree angle. Now everything will clip in place. And then you do the same thing on the other side, of course. And then you have the jet. Okay, there we go. It's not as bad off camera, but it is still needlessly confusing that this has to be at 45 degrees. It is a little bit more irritating than it has to be. And then you do have to have the landing gear down, because this landing gear does not collapse. So if you're setting him down, you got to have pretty much everything deployed. And then there he is, all transformed. It's a pretty good looking jet. Let's get that tail fin down. And he's really massive. He's just a long jet. You compare that to a Voyager class jet, and you can see he's just enormous. He's definitely like an air fortress compared to this guy. So I think that's maybe accurate. It's hard to tell. This cockpit looks a little small. If anything, this guy should maybe even be bigger. But they look pretty good together. I think that is like an appropriate scale. Since this is a bomber, it should be pretty huge. So that's this guy all finished. And here's the AWACS. I think he's got a really cool head sculpt. The helmet's definitely different. Looks like a communications helmet. You can see the earmuff kind of effect, but looks really cool. And of course, he has no head articulation, but really great looking head. I'm really pleased with the way this guy looks. And then overall, I think the aesthetics on this guy, I might be wrong, but I think his aesthetics are just really cool. Even though everything's very simple and smooth, like his legs especially, I think are pretty poor. These don't look very good. But overall, I think his body looks just really awesome. This green effect makes him look very futuristic, like really awesome color on him. The wing storage is kind of a mess, just kind of like folds back and then it folds down. I think it would have looked better if these wings could have like turned upside down so that they were facing up in like a V pattern, but not too bad. And then I really like that his radar dish becomes a shield. That's really cool. And he's got good articulation, so he can actually do stuff with that. And then his hand weapon's a little bit interesting. It's just the tail fins with a couple of his engines attached. So it looks like this. So not a bad looking weapon. And he can actually lift his shoulders and point this. You can't look where he's pointing because he has no head articulation, but he also does have a built-in wrist swivel for transformation, so that's nice. And that helps out with the shield articulation a lot. And then he does have a double jointed elbow. It's hard to see. So that folds up completely. So you get way more than 90 degrees on that, probably about 180. And then you can get him to pretty much block any attack with his shield, so that's pretty fun. And then he does have a waist swivel for transformation, so he does have that little bit of extra articulation. He does have full outward kick like most of these robots. He does have 90 degree at the knee. He does not have forward or backward kick, and he doesn't have a thigh swivel either. And then same kind of deal with his little toes. I think it's accidental. They might have like a little bit of pivot, but they're probably not supposed to. But yeah, what a great looking robot. I like the color. I just like the aesthetics of this guy. So this is the one I was looking most forward to, and he did not disappoint me. I'm really pleased with this. The only thing I don't like, again, is just his legs really don't look like they do anything. And then I do like how these fins come out in the back, kind of bulk him up a little bit. So let's take off all his weapons and things. You can get a better look at him. And this is like keyed in place, so you have to twist it and then you can get it out of the fists. So there we go. We got a good look at his robot mode, and you can see that's why I give him pretty much an 8. He's a pretty solid looking robot mode. He's a little bit plain, but not bad. And they could have definitely just given him the same transformation as the Bomber, but no, he's totally different. So you're going to go ahead and fold up his wings, and I think that's a cool look too, just having his wings arrayed behind him. And then these shoulder panels are going to, actually you have to disengage the chest clips, so you get these out of the way, and then you can rotate. Oops, that usually doesn't happen. Alright, he's got one other thing you got to do, is you got to shove his whole backpack down. Get that out of the way. And then I accidentally shoved his midsection. That's a part of the transformation too. So get that out of the way. And now I should have the clearance to rotate this around. And then you can see this is just going to sandwich and cover his head. And then another nice difference with this guy is you can actually leave his landing gear up. So that's pretty good that he can do that. And then you're going to take the shoulders or the outside chest sections and rotate those all the way around. And they're going to end up down here. And then the legs, of course, are very simple. You're just going to point the toes, collapse those in again, and you can see the weird kind of slider that the feet are on. Same thing for the other robot. And then you're going to peg the legs together, fold out the whole tail section, and those are going to fold up over the toes. It's actually better to do this individually. There's definitely a problem. Like this plastic definitely clashes with this, so you have to do it in a certain way so you don't stress out the hinge. And then there's those two clipped together, and then you're just gonna collapse the legs. And then you can see he's really taking shape. You're just gonna get the wings down into position. You can see the landing gear's on the wrong side because I forgot to rotate his waist. There we go. And then we're going to open this panel, and that's going to help secure the wings a little bit. And that's also where his radar is going to attach. And then this is the part of the transformation I don't really like, is getting these arms lined up is very weird. So this clips nicely into place, but then you have to, let's see, you have to rotate this up and then turn this around. And then there's a double jointed elbow, so you have to line that up correctly. And you rotate his wrist so this slot is on top, because that's going to end up here. And then you have to use this double joint. So you have to actually use the second joint, which is hard to access. And then the turbine will be facing the right way. And that's got to rotate awkwardly up here. And then the wrist tab will slot right there. And there you go. That's that engine in place. Okay, so those are in place, and I forgot you're going to rotate up the tail segments to make one single tail fin. And then you're going to take these bits, and those are just going to peg in to these slots right here. Okay, tail section done, and then you take the other engines, you just slide those down, and that's just going to peg right into this other tab in the wing. Okay, done. Actually, I take that back. You also have to collapse the radar into a single piece, and that's going to clip here. And then there was one last thing I have to do, is you flip him all the way over, and then his whole chest panel here is going to flip over and peg into the back of his waist. So not a bad looking undercarriage. I'm not sure what this is, maybe that's a radar as well, but really cool alt mode. I like the way this looks a lot. The colors, just everything about it just looks really cool to me. And then you can see he's as big as the Bomber, so he's a lot bigger than a Voyager. So really excellent robot. I'm really a fan of this one. If you're interested in buying these, you should definitely use the link to Sir Toys to get these two robots. They look very similar, but they're completely different. No shared parts, completely different transformation, everything different. This guy I enjoy a lot. This guy is like an 8 for playability, fun factor. This guy's more like a 6. I really hate his arm transformation. It's really annoying. But I really like this guy, and if this video doesn't cut off, there's one more thing I want to show you. Okay, I think I'm going to customize this guy so that he can become a backpack for Master V here, because I think that's a really awesome look. And I think the wings in the back fit him a lot better than his original sad, tiny little backpack. I think these wings just look way better on him, so you can look for that custom sometime in the future. Alright, and I'll see you in the next one.